On this episode of the Atlas Airguns Podcast, we talk to Jeremiah Heller from Bullfrog Airguns about everything airguns, Sidewinders, spooky hunting stories, and his friend getting busted by the cops. This Shooting the Breeze episode discusses it all.
All right, well, welcome to the Atlas Airguns Podcast, everyone. I have Jeremiah Heller back on. He's representing, he's got a t-shirt that says Day State on it. That's good news. And he's got an AOA hat. I like that. And I welcomed him on here because we're going to talk about Sidewinders today because we both have shot them. We both like them. So I guess, what are you up to recently? I haven't talked to you in a while.
Just a whole bunch of work and whatnot, and getting the Sidewinder out, shooting it, testing it, getting in some air gunners' hands so that they could try it out, and just been having fun with it.
And you got sick for like a good couple of weeks, huh?
Yeah, it was allergies that just totally killed me. I thought I had the flu or something.
No, just kidding.
Yep, seriously. I mean, you can even see my eyes. I mean, my eyes are barely open, And then I was up in your hometown, and oh my gosh, that was the worst. That was brutal.
You went to Cambria?
I was in Cayucas, yeah, San Luis Obispo, Cayucas, and Morro Bay. Oh my gosh, even the locals, they were dying too. It wasn't just me. So, but yeah.
Nice.
Yep.
So you got the Sidewinder in. I saw you did a couple videos on it. I think you probably still have a couple more coming out.
Yes, definitely the full review.
So just for the audience, the Sidewinder, it's Western Airguns, and it's kind of like the baby brother of the Rattler, except that it goes from 22 to 30 cal, has the removable titanium magazine. It's a couple pounds lighter, and pretty great gun. So what's your first impressions on it, and what's kind of been your experience so far with the 22?
The first thing you notice is it's extremely light. It's really light. It's really compact. It's just a really cool gun. And one of the best things is the power adjuster, because really any pellet or slug you put in it, you can adjust that power to shoot that right. So I really there's nothing I fed it that it didn't like. So it's just an overall great gun.
Or anything.
No.
A lot of people asked me about the regulator. Did you get a lot of questions about that too?
The regulator? No, I really didn't get many questions about the regulator. Most people want to know how many.
I've had a few people ask me oh, what is your reg setting at? And the factory actually sends it in. This one I think is set at 115 bar. So every gun's a little bit different on the regulator, but once you get it in, I tell customers don't even adjust it, just leave it as it is.
Yeah, I believe the one I have is at 120, 125. So yeah, but the gun's amazing. I love the gun, and everybody that I had shoot it, I mean, there's pure smiles on faces. They just couldn't stop laughing after they shot it. It's just an awesome gun.
Yeah. So what distance? What was the maximum distance you shot it?
150 yards.
Woo! What kind of accuracy did you get that?
I was consistently nailing a 4-inch gong. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So that's perfect, and it's a hunter's gun, and so nailing a 4-inch gong at 150 yards, 70 foot-pounds of energy. That's pretty good.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I saw on the gun that I had criticism about was the trigger, because it's a 3-pound trigger. But with that said, if I had a light trigger on this, I think I could get into trouble because I wouldn't want a light trigger on it in the first place with the full auto.
Yeah,
so.
Definitely. And I personally didn't have any problems with the trigger. I thought the trigger felt right for the gun. And, it was real nice when you want to do the burst, 3-round burst. And I think that it's the appropriate trigger for the gun.
Yeah, the 3-round burst too, because you can do it if you memorize how, you can get it to be 2-round or 3-round, depending on how much you hold it down. But if it was a light trigger, I think you just automatically go into, full auto.
Oh yeah. It's hard to not shoot at full auto every time anyways. I mean,
Yeah, you just want to. It only takes like
yeah.
a second though to empty the mag. So let's hear about, you went through a lot of different ammos. What ammo did it specifically like the most? I know you said it wasn't pellet picky, wasn't slug picky, but what one did it like the most?
As far as slugs, I would say the Zans. It really liked the Zan slugs. Those were really nice, consistent, accurate.
And what weight was that?
The Zan slugs, oh, what are they? I cannot think off the top of my head what they are. Man, bummer. I don't have them in front of me. I'll have to post that. Have to post that. Epic fail. Epic fail. Yeah. I don't even have a Sidewinder in front of me. I should have had that in the ammo right here. So, but I love the Zan slugs, and surprisingly, it really liked the Crosman Premier hollow points, which are super cheap. And I mean, you can dump those all day long, and it costs like nothing. And
yeah, the first video I did was actually with the Crossmans, and a lot of the guys that have high end guns are like, "Why are you shooting Crossmans? What? I mean, it's cheap ammo. It's crap ammo." I'm like, because I know if it shoots well out of it at 50 yards, that's what a lot of consumers want to see. Because a lot of guys are going to be using Crossmans when they're going full auto, and I had the same experience. It was like a very tight group, like very tight, a little bigger than a quarter at 50 yards, which is definitely minute squirrel.
Definitely. And I shot a lot of the JSBs and, Hades and different weights of the JSBs, everything I had. I've probably got like 40 different types of pellets laying around. So anything I put in it, it was liking it. So it's like, why shoot the expensive ammo when you're just having fun unloading the gun, If the Crosman Premier hollow points are giving you the accuracy that you want, then why dump the expensive ammo if you don't have to?
Did you do any like walking around or stalking with it other than just bench, or was it primarily bench?
Primarily bench. I've done some offhand shooting with it, but I didn't have an opportunity to go hunting or do any pesting with it, unfortunately, because that would be awesome. Because I mean, you could dump the whole mag into like one ground squirrel, like, and that was kind of what I was hoping to be able to do, but didn't get the opportunity.
I think if I was a consumer buying this, the thing I'm going to use it for mostly is hunting and cleaning cans with the semi-auto mode. But the full auto is fun for friends because I took it to one group and they put on full auto and they're like their head like just explode. They're like, wow, this is really fun. So I think the full auto function, most people will use it with friends, but at their house or whatever, they're going to use semi-auto. So what was your technique on the power adjuster? And just for the audience, the power adjuster is on the bottom right here. So what was your method? Did you crank it all the way up and then go down like 10 FPS at a time? Or do you start on the bottom and go up?
Well, when I got it, I just wanted to shoot where it was at, and it was on full power. So the one I got was turned up to full power by whoever shot it last. And so I was shooting it like that, and then I went all the way down to the lowest power just to see how the accuracy was, and see how the gun operated at that low power. And yeah, I mean, everything from the lowest to the highest, you can get your accuracy, whatever you put in it. So,
and I just click it 10 FPS at a time, or about, every click I think was about 5 FPS at a time. But I'll click it a little bit down. I'm tired here. Okay, I'll click it up. So I cranked all the way down and I click it up one click at a time. And then once I would see the group shrink up. The only downside is because I was just testing it, I had to shoot a lot of cards the first time around. But then once I got it figured out how many clicks down from the top end, then I could actually get back to that spot. So I'd go, oh, this is like 20 clicks down is good for JSB 2539s. And I'd go, 20 clicks down or wherever I had to memorize. So I kind of kept a sheet of paper and actually wrote down my adjustments. That way, the next time around, I could come out and get to that same thing. And I did demo a couple other 22s to make sure they're their accuracy was good for clients and stuff. And when I demoed them, I used the same click method, and it's an approximation. It's not exact, but I would be able to get to basically really good accuracy with repeating accuracy with the first chart that I had written down. So that was good news.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And then I had the same issue when I first started shooting it. Well, when I first shot it, I just went full power how it was. And that was that video I did for you on the challenge where it was like the real small group. And so once I started switching up pellets, then I didn't have very good accuracy. And that's when I started messing with the dial and going either up or down depending on the pellet or slug. And like you said, you can see that group just tighten right up to no matter what you put in it. So yeah, it's a good gun. And I was interested in the 30 cal. However, that 22 is the one I would be recommending because there's such a variety of slugs and pellets that you could shoot through it that I think that's just an amazing gun, 22. I mean,
Well,
it's just fun.
Cool thing, like I've had a lot of customers ask for the 30 cal, and I
Mm-hmm.
get why, because you can hunt, like in Florida,
Oh, yeah.
you can hunt a hog with that.
Yeah.
And you can't with a 22. This 22, though, if it was legal, is capable because it puts off on the top end 72 foot-pounds.
Yeah.
On the bottom end, though, if you crank the power to the lowest level, it's 12 foot-pounds roughly, and you get like 300 shots, which is insane.
Yeah.
So I think that's why I would pick that, is that I like shooting in my backyard, so I could do, the minimum amount of power with the greatest amount of shots and have a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yep, definitely. And when I first started shooting that, the people that I was showing it to, they didn't think it was a 22 because they heard that steel smacking and they thought it was like a 30 cal. And
Yeah, it has a weird sound signature too. It's not the same kind of sound that other air guns have with like a pop-up valve. It sounds like very mechanical. Like
yeah.
if you actually look at a sound wave too, you'll see two distinct like sound markers right next to each other, really close together. So it's like a really weird like double sound, and it's obviously the hammerless system, but it's a different sound. I try to communicate to someone, and then they actually shot it to try it a couple weeks ago, and they're like, "Oh, that does sound really different." So
Yeah. I love the sound of it. I love that metal sound that the magazine makes. Like, I don't know why. I think it just sounds cool as hell. I mean,
yeah, and that
yeah.
magazine's like super strong.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's the Sidewinder overall. So let's move on to new things, since we got that that product placement out of the way. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
So you went to Cayucas last week?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
A lot of fun.
How many guns do you guys take?
Well, I brought up the Alpha Wolf, I brought up the Sidewinder, and then I brought up Air Force Condor 25 cal. And the guys that were shooting there, they all shoot Armadas. So
Armadas.
all three. Yeah. Yeah. So I introduced them to the world of the high quality and introduced them to some.
What did they think of the Red Wolf?
The Alpha Wolf, they were highly impressed by that. Highly impressed by that. So I even put out a video where I shot at 105 yards and hit a 4-inch steel, but I was standing up, not even looking through the scope or anything. Just the gun's that accurate,
Yeah. The Alpha Wolf is like, every time if I take it to a competition to like, not to shoot it, but to show it off to people or, maybe potential clients, when I pull it out of the box, everyone always looks at the stock and goes, "Oh my gosh." I still love the red. I like the Safari a lot, but the red is like definitely the cool color.
Yeah.
So is this a private residence that you went to, or is this a public area?
No, it's a public area. It was Hang Gliders Hill. It's like right behind it, and so yeah, it's a public area.
Oh,
nice.
They allow shooting there?
Yeah. And it's got nice, beautiful rolling hills and the ocean behind us, and people hang gliding around us in the sky. Pretty cool place to shoot.
Do people shoot firearms there?
My buddy said that they used to shoot firearms there before they got into air guns, but nobody. We could hear somebody like over a hill that was shooting, but that was about it. There weren't shells all over the ground or anything like that.
I used to go hunt on the Cuesta Grade. So obviously I'm in Florida now for the audience, but I used to hike up the Cuesta Grade to hunt quail, and it was a very hard hike. But I wish I had known about where you're talking about because that'd been a lot better access.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's weird. We went up through a neighborhood, and then from the neighborhood there was like a dirt road that took us on the backside of it. So yeah,
The
a lot better access.
The San Luis Obispo range, whatever that silly range is, it's really beautiful, but I hate ranges.
Yeah, and what distance do they have there?
It's all the way out to like it's a powder burning range that goes all the way out to like 1,000 yards on the primary, and then if you go into the back area where they have a long distance, I think it's maybe 2,500 yards. It's even a greater distance, so you never use any of it as an air gunner. But it's a really pretty range. But again, I don't like ranges. But you have a good one where you are, huh?
Yeah, I have a really good range. Like the range masters are awesome there. Everybody that shoots there is really responsible. Most of them are old Marines every time I go, and so you don't really have the idiots that don't know what they're doing, luckily. And the range masters, they keep a good eye, and so if somebody didn't know what they were doing, they'd be corrected real quick. So, and then all the firearm guys there are super cool. They're always wanting to know what I'm shooting and want to check out my gun, and they always give me pointers on like my scope and stuff like that. You know, like before I went to EBR, like they were kind of helping prep me for my long range shooting. So I'd never shot a 100-yard bench before a week before I went. So
the range that I go to one that has no range masters, and that's not a dig on that range because it's a public range. It's like out in the middle of nowhere. There's usually no one there, but I go there for filming reasons because there's no range master. There's no one else there usually, and I'm usually the pistol area has a few people, so I'll have to wear earmuffs still for the pistols being shot, but the long distance area, it only goes to 200 yards. I shoot the air guns there, and I'm able to film, so that's why I go there. But that being said, definitely some sketchy behavior sometimes there. A guy like flashed a muzzle at me a couple weeks ago, and I was like, "You freaking idiot!" He shoots someone, and then one guy showed up with an AR-15, and he had this new like holographic like hologram sight, like red dot sight, and he's like, "Oh, I just got this off of Amazon." I'm like, "Yeah, you should just use iron sights because that's gonna break on you." He's like, "Oh, I think it's pretty good." He takes his first shot because he had just bought the AR-15. He's never owned one before, and it completely shattered his new sight. Like it turned into plastic and it fell on the ground. He didn't have any backup sights, iron sights, and the whole irony being that I had told him 1 minute ago, like he was asking me, "Oh, what kind of optics do you use?" I'm like, actually, on like a powder burner like AR-15, I just use metal iron sights, and he was kind of criticizing me a little bit. And 1 minute later, his sight was like complete. It was like some kind of holographic red dot, but it was like completely in parts, and it was pretty funny.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think ranges are, you can make it or break it depending on the officers there. But it's good that you at least have a good one. How far is that range from your house?
That's the problem. It's about 40 minutes, 45 minutes. And so the distance they have is only 100 yards too, when I have 90 yards at my house.
Okay. So, and then can you film there, or is it kind of awkward?
Kind of awkward because all the firearms going off. I mean, I can't really get my audio in. I mean, I could get some B-roll of me just shooting, but that's about it.
And then it's kind of awkward that you have the tripod there or whatever, and everyone's like, "Who's this goon?"
Yeah, exactly.
With his little BB gun.
Yeah, exactly. But the funny thing is I outshoot everybody there every time I'm there, because I don't know, the gun's just way more accurate than their firearms, and so that's always fun and interesting to see their faces, when they see the accuracy of it. and
You're
then
still
the
shooting the
silence.
30 cal barrel?
Switching back and forth between my 25 and my 30, but I shoot my 30 more. Yeah.
I've kind of like preferred 22 the last 7 months, I think 8 months.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm,
Yeah. I'm
I'm just a
tempted to
22
grab a
boy.
22. I'm tempted to grab a 22 barrel, but I want a 22 Red Wolf, so I think I'm just gonna wait and get the Red Wolf.
Yeah, Red Wolf is a nice gun. I
Yeah.
want one of those.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I really want one. And so I'm debating, like, do I want one and then buy the PRS chassis, or do I just buy the Red Wolf GP? I don't really
I
like the
like
grip on the
the
GP.
midnight, the blue midnight version.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love the midnight version. I've never been a fan of red, but now that I have the red Alpha Wolf, I don't really want the blue midnight anymore. I want the red to match my Alpha Wolf now.
It'd be nice if they did the midnight for the Alpha series.
I would buy the stock, definitely. If they did, I would definitely buy the stock because I wanted that. And I was gonna wait, but then I was talking to people from Day State, and they're like, they told me they were working on the Safari, but they're like, we haven't even talked about doing the Midnight and Alpha Wolf yet. And so I was like, yeah, I'm getting the regular, the red.
Yeah, they'll probably wait a year and then they'll do that. They probably want to promote the Safari. The Safari stock. What's really nice about it is the texturing's like really gritty. So I could see being a hunter. It's definitely you got a little more traction with your hands or your gloves if you're in cold weather. So I did like the texturing. I like the black monocoque frame though rather than the bronze
Oh yeah,
personally, but that's
yeah,
just my aesthetic preference. But
yeah, yeah. And for me, because I sold the kits when they came out with the Alpha Wolf, they had the kit with the red stock and the upgrade to the system, so you can turn your Delta Wolf into an Alpha Wolf. But I'm thinking about turning my Alpha Wolf into a Delta Wolf as far as removing the stock and putting a grip on it, because when I go out to Puerto Rico and go iguana hunting, the one downside to that gun is that stock is too beautiful. It's a beautiful stock, and so I don't want it getting all messed up or anything. And so I think I'm
well,
actually gonna.
here's the thing though. For photos, optics, that red stock's gonna look really good in the
Oh
forest.
yeah, definitely, definitely, definitely. And that's the hard part. I don't really want to take it off, but then it's like I really don't want to mess it up either. But yeah, I'm gonna probably end
I
up
just
leaving it.
yeah, just leave it. I mean, don't highlight it. I think that's the same thing for me. Like usually I get upset when a gun has like I get a new gun and let's say I buy this gun and next week there's a huge old like scratch or something on a moderator here. I'll be like looking at it like, oh my gosh, there's a scratch on it. But
Yeah,
then once that happens and once I kind of grieve it, like, oh, it's not perfect anymore, then it's actually I have more fun because I'm not idolizing it. I start roughing
yeah,
it up and going through the forest or whatever.
yeah.
Here, the forest is really, really thick. In Puerto Rico, so you're going there?
Yes, yes. I am
That's
going there.
got
I was planning on already going this month, but certain things have happened and whatnot, and so I'm gonna have to push the trip back a little bit. But I will definitely be there by the end of this year.
And what's your plans when it comes to air guns in Puerto Rico?
I'm gonna be bringing my Alpha Wolf, and I have just to get on the plane. The bottle has to be open with the valve out of it, showing that it's empty and whatnot. And so I'm pretty sketched out about bringing my stuff on a plane because I've heard of people losing luggage and stuff like that, and that would be a nightmare for me to lose my setup. But my friend that's out there, he's got guns, and he said I don't have to bring my guns. I could use his, but I don't want to use his. I want to use my day state, and I don't want to shoot I don't want to shoot an FX.
Yeah. So the Alpha Wolf, when you take it, can you get insurance? I'm sure you can on the package.
Yeah, the flight, like
Yeah.
insure my
Or
luggage. Yeah,
that's another thing you could do. You could just ship it UPS, right?
yeah. Can you do UPS to Puerto Rico?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
Of
cool.
course you can. Yeah, it's UPS Air, so you just can't do the ground, but you
Okay,
can do like
yeah,
second day air, send it out, and you have a business account, so you could send it out probably cheaper than the airplane, and you can leave it pressurized in that case too.
That's most likely what I'm gonna do because it freaks me out to go on a plane with it.
Yeah, I've never gone on an airplane with an air gun. I have plenty of friends that do it, obviously, but
Yeah,
uh,
yeah,
I've had stuff lost very consistently on airplanes, so I don't even check clothing in. And clothing's worth like my clothing. Look at this. I look like a hobo. My clothing's worthless. So putting a $2,000 or $3,000 air gun on a plane, I'm like very hesitant to do that.
yeah, yeah, definitely. And mine's upwards of like 5,000 when you count like the scope and the moderator and the bipod and everything else. You know what I mean? So yeah,
Yeah, I might even see on the shipping too if you really wanted to diminish your likelihood of lost products. Send the scope separate, like the next day, so it's on a separate plane altogether. It'll
oh
cost
yeah,
you 20 more bucks, but then
yeah,
you're have at least if one item gets lost, it's just going to be one, not the whole package.
right,
What scope
right.
do you use?
Right now, I shoot a Vortex Viper, and its first focal plane, I think 5 to 25 by 56, 34 millimeter tube. So it's a pretty good scope. I mean, it's an affordable scope, under 500, about 500. But I'm looking to upgrade right now, and so I'm on the fence with a couple companies and just deciding which one I want to go with.
I really want to get my hands on the Integrix. I would love
That's
to
one
have one of those.
I'm debating about that.
Yeah, and it made such a good impression. I remember about a year ago, I mentioned it to a couple air gunners that are pretty high up in the industry, and they
Hmm.
laughed me out of the room. They're like, "Oh, UTG, you freaking idiot!" And then when they saw it in person at EBR, and I think they had a very good showing at EBR, but when those
Hmm.
people, same people that criticized me for even mentioning leapers, when they look through it, they're like, "Oh, okay, this is proper. This is like a track scope, and track is another scope that I really like." So when they look through it, they're like, "Holy cow, this is a good scope." And I think it changed a few minds, but still, I don't even think it's out yet. It's coming out this month, I think, or next month.
Oh,
But
okay.
it's been like 2 years in the works that they've officially announced it, but it still hasn't been released. And I think David Deing, the owner of Leapers, I think he just really wants it to be like no hiccups. He wants it to come out of the gates perfect, right? So I
Yeah.
think that's why there's
Hmm.
been a lot of delays. So you're considering that one, and then what else are you considering?
I really like Blackhound, and so I'm considering Blackhound. That's another one. And I was looking at Citron. I see that they've got a couple models out this year. I've got like the old 2022 catalog, and there's nothing in there that I really wanted. But I guess their new S8 is pretty legit, so I was gonna check that one out. And yeah, Athlon was another one I was kind of looking into, but wasn't quite. On, I don't know if I'm gonna go with that one. The two main ones I think are Integrix and Blackhound.
Yeah, I just use only. I mean, I'm a like I said, I'm a hobo, so I just use the what is it called, the Aztec. So I have an Aztec Emerald, and it's pretty dang clear. It's a kind of on the mid tier scope, but it's really
Hmm.
good for what I use it for. And for filming, the Tacticam setup that I have seems to like work
Yeah.
pretty well with that. And I'm really bad with scope cam footage, like getting it all synced up. It takes me a lot of time, and
Hmm.
that scope seems to be the easiest so far for me. So that's why I kind of stick to that one. The King Cobra, I have one of those in stock, and I really like it. So I might go for that next time around because it's a pretty dang good glass for the price point. The
Yeah.
Integrix is like the problem with that for me is that the price point is really high, and I think I'm just gonna wait because I have family and stuff like that, so I always have to save my money. So if I get an Integrix, I'm just gonna be putting my money in a corner until I can chunk down three $1,800 or whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Definitely. That's the thing. It's an investment when you get those because they're pretty pricey. And right now I'm looking at like I've had it in my cart like 5 times, but ATN, and
Oh yeah,
so
the ATM Thor.
Well, the Thor, that's pretty pricey. So that's not been in my
Yeah.
shopping cart. It's been the 4K lower one. The 8. It's on sale for 800 right now. But I think it's the Excite 4K.
Excite. I'm gonna look at it right now.
Mm-hmm.
ATN Excite.
Yeah, I've always wanted an ATN, but now I'm looking at it. I'm like, well, how does my picture look at 100 yards? How does it look at 150 yards? Like, I really want to hold something and check it out before I buy it.
Is it the Excite 5?
I believe so.
I'm pulling it up. Oh, $795. Ultra HD 4K Smart Day Vision Rifle Scope. Ooh, that's really nice.
Yeah, and the videos it gets are just awesome. But it's not a competition scope, and I'm thinking towards competition. I'm not hunting and pesting as much as I'd like to be right now, and so I'm like, do I go that route or do I invest in a better comp scope? And then I'm also trying to think strategically about which scope company I want to go with. Like MTC is obviously another one that I'm thinking about, because eventually, if I do well at a competition, then that'll benefit me to be using companies that I want to work with.
Yeah, they're pretty good. It's obviously for the listener, they're the Day State, subsidiary, so it's the same folks that are behind it. But it's a
Yeah,
pretty good. The King Cobra and the Copperhead is really cool. That's like a compact, but I like that scope too.
yeah.
So yeah, so what's happening with your shop? We talked about a month and a half ago with Roger, and we didn't get into the alien stuff like he wanted to, but we did talk about your shop then. Any
Uh,
updates since then?
I've been so busy with work and whatnot that I need to get back in my shop, and yeah, I'm still working on that. So I've got to finish building out my office and get the AC in there, because right now I'm indoors at my father-in-law's office because it's just too hot out there. So I got to get on that, get that built out, and
So
whatnot.
let's troll Roger a little bit since he's not on here. The for He always likes talking about Bigfoot. I don't believe any of that kind of stuff, but
uh,
like let's hear sketchy stories hunting, because I've got so many times. I'll give an analogy before I'll give you a little time to think about it. But I was out in the forest, Florida forest, about a month ago filming, and I'm way out there, like 3 hours out in the middle of Florida, and it took me like a good hour to set up. So I had all the incentive to stay there because I just got in there, spent an hour to set up. So we're talking already 3 hours invested just in filming. I'm there for 5 minutes, and I didn't see anything. I didn't hear anything. I'm not saying I saw Bigfoot, because again, I'm not really a Bigfoot believer. But I got
mm,
so sketched out, like all the hairs in my head just like raised up all on my neck. I was like kind of panicking for no reason. And I felt for sure someone was watching me. And I just kept looking around. I was totally spooked. And then I picked everything up, and I just thought, maybe the Lord's telling me to leave. So I left. And I was so pissed off because I had spent 3 hours getting there, 2 hours getting there, an hour setting up. I got fundamentally freaked out, like spooked. And I was talking to a couple of hunting buddies, like, "Oh yeah, that happens to me all the time." So I wanted to ask you, has that ever happened to you, where you go out in the middle of the forest and you just get royally spooked?
absolutely, yes. I used to live at the edge of the Gila Wilderness, the Gila National Wilderness in New Mexico. And so I was out there all the time, hunting, hiking, mountain biking, exploring, just doing all kinds of stuff. I just was always out there. And I would go camping out there by myself because I didn't get along with my ex-wife very well. And so whenever things went bad, I just hit the forest and went camping. And one night I went out there, set up my camp, and it was already getting dark, or it already was dark. And so pulled off on a random spot, set up my tent, lit the fire, and then I'm just chilling by myself, like hanging out. And then I start hearing like twig snapping, but not twigs, like pretty big sticks. I could tell it's some weight. And so I felt like I was being watched, and every about hour or so I just pop off a round from my 357 or from my 12 gauge, and it would kind of like stop for a moment, but I still kept feeling like I was being watched the whole time. And back then I drank too, so I was like, whatever, not think about it as much because I was drinking. Well, I wake up the next morning and I start walking around my camp, and there's just this little berm, like maybe 15 feet from where the fire was. I walk over there and there's an elk that's half buried and half eaten. And so I basically just camped right up on this mountain lion's kill and almost got eaten by a mountain lion. I swear, like that thing was stalking me all night long. So
do they bury their kills?
Yeah, cats will bury their kill and then they come back and eat it. So they don't eat it all at once. So they'll come back. Yeah. Like one guy got eaten when I lived there, and they found him in his backyard, and he was buried, and they kept coming back to eat him and stuff. So
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Yeah. And there's been other times too when I'm hunting, I go out and I start calling in coyotes or fox or bobcat, because I was a fur bearer when I was out in New Mexico. That was a lot of the hunting I did was fur bearing, and so I'd go out to call in, fox or bobcat or coyote, and inevitably you're going to be calling in bears and mountain lions as well. And so there's a few times there where I felt like there's a huge cat on me, and everything in me is like, dude, get out of here, And so I would just bail, because even the birds, all of a sudden all the birds just bail, and then you don't even hear the birds chirping anymore, and it's like this eerie feeling, So I've had several encounters like that.
There's this one time, it was the Cuesta grade, so not too far from where you shot in Cayucas this week. So I hiked up the grade, and if you hike up on the south side of the Cuesta grade, there's a little bike path / like walking path, and there's certain areas of it when you're first walking on it that are owned by private residences, and then other areas are owned by the city. So you have to walk in a long way, like 3 hours before you start getting into the national forest. That's the Los Padres National Forest. So you have to walk, and it's uphill too, because you're still doing an incline. So it's a severe incline for like 3 hours. And you finally get in there, and this is another scary story for me, at least hunting. I got in there. It took me 3 or 4 hours to get to the spot where I could start hunting. And all of a sudden, this thick fog like settled on this ridgetop. And it was very, very eerie. And I was trying to hunt quail, and I'd see some, and I'd try to take a shot. This was with an air gun. And you know about quail, if you like take a shot, they're gone like for the rest of the day. So you have to keep hiking and keep looking in different areas. And I got this really weird, eerie feeling that like came over this whole area, and there's a ridge to the side of me that was like a cliff, and there's like certain kind of like sediment there. It's basically, it looks like a rock, but it's like sandstone on the top of those mountains. And all of a sudden, like there's a little rock slide came down. I'm like, is there someone up there? Is there like a mountain lion up there? And kind of the same thing. I just got really spooked. Again, never saw anything, but level spooked that I ended up leaving that day. And I was kind of bummed out because I'd invested so much time in hiking up there.
Oh yeah, definitely. I've encountered also like pack of javelina when I was in New Mexico. I was with my daughter. She was like 6 at the time. And so we were going up there to like cut down a Christmas tree. And then all of a sudden the forest was just like moving, and it took me a second for my eyes to adjust and see what was happening. But there was like hundreds of javelina running straight at me. And like, those are like the wild boar that are in Arizona and New Mexico. They've got some crazy tusks and stuff like that. But luckily there was like a stone table, picnic table. So I was able to jump up on top of that and put my daughter up on my shoulders. But all I had on me was a .22 revolver, and it was like 9 shots. And so all I could do was like pray they didn't come up onto the table, because all I would do is make them mad. That would just bounce off their skull, And so luckily they all ended up going past, and then didn't have to deal with them. But man, my daughter did not want to cut down a Christmas tree ever again. So
Yeah, it's weird about those things is I didn't know about them until I think 2 years ago or a year ago. I think David from Black Horse Design and Kip Perot were kind of the two first people that told me about them. And they have like
uh,
that weird scent gland. They're not technically a pig, but they, for all intents
yeah,
and purposes, kind of are. But they're, when it comes to the science, they're not in the same family
yeah.
or whatever. But they
Hmm.
definitely look gnarly. I hear they're pretty blind though.
Yeah, they're blind, and so they just attack whatever's in their path. And Eric Black Arts Design, he's got some on his property that are like his pets. He like feeds them, and they're like totally calm. But the ones I've seen in New Mexico, they're like super vicious. They attack whatever gets in their way.
Yeah, Eric would he would do that. He would I don't know, like here, buddy. I'm
Yep, yep.
like,
I know. Seriously, and they smell like skunks too. Like people eat them, and I heard the meat smells like skunk too, and they like soak the meat to get rid of it. It's like nasty. It's like, no, no,
I
I'm
wonder
good
if
on
they
that.
soak it in milk because milk is like one of those weird things where it
That's
like
yep.
extracts the.
That's what they do. They soak it in milk. Yep. But I'd rather just not eat skunk.
It's funny, like when you're an air gunner or in firearms too, but you get like the wisdom of the crowd. So like you get like I don't know how to say that. It's like crowd consciousness or like wisdom of the crowd. I'll say it that way. Wisdom of the crowd. So over time, you're just like learn little tidbits like, oh yeah, milk, like soak meat in milk, and
Hmm.
you wouldn't know that otherwise. I guess you could research it, but you kind of pick up random things like that, and then you're talking to someone else, and they're like, oh yeah, milk, yeah. It's like
Yeah.
everyone does milk, and you're like, oh okay,
Yep. Yep. Tricks of the trade.
yeah. On that note, you ever come across information like tricks of the trade that's just completely false? Because I've totally have where people are like, oh yeah, I do this, and you're like, you learn out later on that was like the worst advice you've ever heard.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, even my buddies I was up visiting, because I consider myself a newbie, but I've learned quite a bit in the few years I've been in this, because everybody I talked to and whatnot, and I was talking to them, and some of the information they had was just completely false, and so I showed them what was correct, and then I also let them know, like, hey, if you need to know something, like, hit up somebody you know to get the information from. Don't just randomly ask a Facebook group, because you're going to get 30 wrong answers from 30 different people, and yeah, there's a lot of bad information that I've heard.
I think the information that I see, and this isn't information I received, but I see it sometimes on forums, that like not using like food grade silicone grease, like that's a huge one. People use all kinds of other stuff, and then
Hmm.
like food grade silicone grease. It's what you want. It's what divers use.
Hmm.
That's a big one. I see a lot of information wrong, and then I think the second thing I see the most of, and I think we talked about this last podcast, is the mass marketing right now of dime size at 300 or whatever the distance is. Like a lot of people are just peddling I can get tiny, tiny groups every single time at 300 yards. And
Yeah.
I've shot air guns now for 30 years. And
Hmm.
I don't care the brand. If you're shooting a smaller caliber, you're not going to get a tiny, 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 tiny group every
Hmm.
single time at 300 yards. I really think that air guns shine between 20 and 120 yards,
Yeah.
but I feel like the marketing right now is pushing to these greater distances. And like I was at a competition this week, and I met a couple of people that said, oh, I shoot tiny, tiny groups with this gun all the time. And they're asking about one of the guns I had brought to show. I said, can this shoot 350 yards or 300 yards? And I was like, no, it cannot. You can't do the dime size at 300 yards. And they said, well,
Yeah.
mine can. And then they went and shot the competition, and I looked at their cards, and their cards, if you compiled all the groups together, it'd be like pretty big group. And
Yeah.
I'm not dissing them. That's just the reality of air guns at 100 yards. You're going to get,
Yeah.
you know, bigger groups, and your average total is going to be what gets you on a better trajectory to win a competition. So it's not about the specific card that you're shooting, but your average, I think, is the totality of your shooting is what's going to get you ranking higher. But I'm always just
Yeah.
the videographer, so I don't, it's easy for me to criticize, but that's something I see a lot of misinformation about.
Yeah, definitely. And for me, before I even got into competing or wanting to compete, I didn't shoot past 100 yards. I mean, because I was pesting or hunting, and so realistically, it would be like 20 to 70 yards. And I didn't really care about my groups. I wasn't really shooting paper before either, because all I cared about was hitting my target in the kill zone, and that was good
Yeah,
enough for
like
me, you know.
minute of squirrel.
Yeah, yep, definitely. And so, but after going to EBR last year, I fell in love with competing. I think it's fun, and I love it. And so now I'm worrying about groups and consistency and shooting paper and learning the wind and all that.
What other kind of misinformation do you see, at least when it comes to EBR and competitive events like that you've come across?
Um, well, I don't really have misinformation as far as like competing that I've dealt with, but a lot of people telling people not to fill their guns past, certain psi when it can clearly go past that. It says it on the gun, 3200, whatever. They're like, don't fill it past 29. And my other buddy was told that his compressor only fills to 3000 psi, so he was only filling his guns to 3000. And I'm like, dude, like, no, like, this thing's 4500. They're all 4500. You know what I mean? Some are more, but and then people saying, you got to empty your guns to store them, which is
Dumb.
not not good at all. I mean, the pressure is what keeps all the seals good and everything, and so just dumb information like that. And then also with the compressors, a lot of bad information about compressors and all the extra stuff that people put on to like a cheap Yonghing and make it seem like this is all necessary. And so there's a lot of misinformation about filling, I believe, and about compressors as well.
Yeah.
So
Well, the thing too is like on like compressors and filters and stuff too. It's hot air that carries moisture, so more than anything. So like a lot of
mm-hmm,
people focus on like a bleed valve or whatever is on some of these filters that you can get a higher end, and
uh
that's all well and good. But if you're carrying hot air, that's actually what's going to carry the molecules of water into your tank or whatever. But I
mm-hmm,
think I think a lot of times people over focus on one direction or the other. So they say, "Oh, hand pumps are totally fine. I never have to filter anything. I've never had a
mm-hmm.
problem." And then years later, they open up their tank and they're like, "Oh, okay, it's actually I should have filtered that." And there's the other
Yeah.
side that goes kind of Nazi about the filters. And I think
Mm-hmm.
if you're just being moderately concerned about it and do a little bit of care on your gun and make sure to filter it, you're not
Yeah.
going to have a problem 99% of the time. But I'm always
Right.
the guy in the middle, kind of the moderate.
Yeah. Yeah. Same here. I mean, I have added filtration to mine, but it cracks me up when people buy like a $225, $250 Yonghing and they put like a radiator on it. They put like a tank, on it, and they put all this stuff on it. It's like, dude, just buy a better compressor, you know what I'm saying? Like like all that stuff they put into it, it's like, bro, you could have just afforded one that does all that,
And they have to get like buckets of ice. And I know why they're doing that to keep it
Yeah.
cooler, but it's still,
Yeah.
it is ridiculous. It is
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah. And so a lot
You're,
of
you're,
misinformation on that.
I can just see the wife like seeing you with a bucket of ice coming out, like heaving two buckets of ice. Like, what are you doing? Like, I'm filling up my guns.
Yep. Yep. Seriously. Seriously. Best day of my life was when I got rid of that Yonghing. That was my
Oh, you had one?
best. I had one. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
lucky enough skipped the whole thing because I just went straight to a tank, and I've always
Uh-huh.
had the luck of finding a place. And I
Uh-huh.
shouldn't say luck because the first time I had to go to like five different dive shops until I found one that filled, but they would fill it for like $5, and it
Oh
was really
yeah.
cheap. So I'll just fill that way. Then when I came to the East Coast, it took me a month to find someone. So maybe like
Yeah.
10 different visits. And I found a paintball place that has a 1,700 cubic foot tank, a ballast tank, and they can
Uh-huh.
fill my whole tank in like 2 seconds.
Oh, nice. Nice.
And I give
Nice.
them like ten bucks cash because I think that's kind of fair. But
Yeah.
not as good as
Yeah.
$5, but still better than nothing.
Yeah. Now that I have my Omega compressor, I just fill my tank, and then I don't fill my guns on it or anything. I just fill everything from the tank. So
You have an
that makes it
Omega
a lot
tank as
more.
well.
Yeah, I have the Omega Patriot, and
Does it have
yeah,
the two gauges, or is it the single gauge?
the 2 gauge. I got the big 110 cubic inch or whatever.
Cubic
And
foot.
so yeah, cubic foot. Yeah, so I got the bigger one.
I have a 75, and I like it because it's a little smaller. I have the single gauge, so it's the one that's like been outfitted, but it's not primarily for air gunners. But
Uh,
it works pretty good. I had to take the check valves off of the hose, and I think also the gauge build. So it's like two of them. Maybe there's three, but I took them out. So I have to use a male-to-male Foster quick disconnect adapter. So when I go to
uh-huh.
paintball place, I actually open up the valve and they bleed it through the same line because they're set up for paintballers coming up. Like let's say 500 paintball guns coming up the same day, filling up. That's why they have such a big tank.
Yeah,
Um, but I have to go that way. If I don't go that way, they can't fill the tank at all.
yeah, yeah. And for me, there's nobody really close to me that would fill the tanks if I didn't have a compressor. Like I would have to be driving pretty far. And even the airsoft places and the paintball places around me, they don't fill to 4,500. And so even if I were to bring it to them, I mean, my tank would be neutralizing with my gun so fast. And not only that, but I shoot 30 cal mainly, so I'm shooting a lot more air, and so I need that huge tank because I've gone through my whole tank in a day before. So
Yeah, like
I definitely need it.
the ghost video that I did. Like if I do a Sidewinder, if I did a Sidewinder video today, let's say where I have to shoot a lot of groups, I could go
Hmm.
through the whole day without going through a tank. I could probably do 2 days with one tank. But the
Yeah.
Ghost in 30, that thing definitely uses some air because it's putting off roughly like 100 foot-pounds. And I had a client that actually had the 25 cal. He bought a 30 cal barrel kit.
Uh-huh.
He got the barrel kit and put it in. And he texted me like the next day, and he's like, "Dude, this thing's putting off 119 foot-pounds." I'm like, "Nah, no, it's not," because it says on paper 95. And he
Uh-huh.
cronied in and sent the data to me. And sure enough, it was 119 foot-pounds that he was getting on average, like 118, 119. I don't know.
Yeah.
It might be that he got lucky. That's maybe his spring or whatever is a little tougher than the last one, but it's the Ghost puts off a tremendous amount of power for what it is. And the same
Oh
thing, the
yeah.
Alpha Wolf, like the Alpha Wolf, the new fast flow valve. I think it's
Yep.
105 foot-pounds. So that's a lot of air and a lot of energy.
Yeah. Definitely. Definitely. That thing it's a beast. I mean, when
So
it hit, it's what's that?
when you upgraded it, you did the valve change, and then how long did that take you to do?
Mm, as long as my video was, I think my video was like 5-10 minutes, and I could have done it faster had I not been explaining it and doing a video. So it's really not a hard thing to do at all. The gun is actually pretty easy to work on, and it's pretty straightforward once you get into it. It's really intimidating to open it up, and especially how much money the gun costs and everything. But once you open it up and get into it, I mean, it's really easy to work on.
It
So
is like a pretty simple gun, and I think
yeah,
that's really good for the consumer that actually does buy it because it's not like there's a million wires all over the place. I think that's what people picture in their head. They think they're going to open up a computer and it's going to be like a motherboard and just like you would on a personal
yeah,
PC. You know, they think that's what they imagine, but
yeah.
it's everything's really nice and plug and play. So then you got
Hmm.
the Valve upgrade on your firmware upgrade.
Yeah, I got the DTD device, and so now I can upgrade it whenever I want from my house. And I highly recommend people getting that. I forget how much it was, like 50, 60, 75, something like that. But you're able to, update it at any point from your house rather than take it into people, or send it back to AOA just for an update.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
I'd get that.
yeah, and a battery actually fried out on me this last weekend when I went up to shoot with my buddies. And it was my fault. I left the battery on charge too long. I left it on all night, and you only need it plugged in for like an hour. And so the battery fried on me, and went to a hobby store there in San Luis Obispo County, and then got a battery hooked up from them, and it was back in action. And
They
so
had
it's funny.
the right battery.
Yeah, they had the right battery for me and everything.
What kind
So
of battery is it?
it's they're just like cheap airsoft batteries. They're maybe an inch square, and they're about 4 or 5 inches long, and it just fits in the back, like underneath the butt plate. Pretty
What
small
kind
battery.
of what kind of hobby store was it?
It was one that has tons of everything. It had airsoft paintball, RCs, drones,
This is
like
like
everything.
is it hobby world or
It's been there forever. Like, I'm sure you know it.
yeah,
It's
was it in Tascadero?
a Tascadero. That's exactly where it was. Yep.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
And was there a long hair guy there?
Yeah. The big Indian dude.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
funny story. I grew up right next to him, and
Uh
this goes back a long time, but it was back then it was like everyone was into RC cars. I bought my Traxxas RC4
huh.
and yeah, no, Traxxas Stampede. I bought a Traxxas Stampede there, and I bought a Team Associated B4 through him, and then I actually became friends with him. For the life of me, I can't remember his name, but he owns that place, so it's
Yeah. Hmm.
yeah, super nice. But he used to come to the farmland that I lived on, and he would fly his RC helicopter. He was a lot older than me, but he kind of indulged me because I was a little kid that just loved RC cars, everything
Oh
like that.
yeah.
So he'd bring his like $3,000 helicopter, $4,000 helicopter, and I'd be able to watch him fly it, and I'd
Oh
like
yeah.
learn everything about RC cars that I could because it was just so fun. And I was right on the precipice of the big battery change and moving over to brushless motors. That's when kind of the hobby got even more insane.
Yeah. Yeah. And the dude's super helpful, and he loved the day state so much, like, because he had never seen anything like it. And so he was like super stoked to help me out and get a battery, and he charged it for me, and I came back and picked it up and whatnot. And yeah, so got rocking again with the gun. But it's funny because a lot of people have reached out to me and they've said, "Oh, I ordered a day state. I got it. I got the Alpha Wolf in the beginning when they released it, and it's been like back at day state ever since." So I'm like, "Well, what was wrong with your gun?" And they're like, "Oh, battery issue."
It's
And that's
hobby headquarters. That's the
hobby
business name.
headquarters, right? But it cracks me up that these people are complaining about their Alpha Wolf because they said there's a battery problem. It's like, change the battery or ask Day State for a new battery. They'll send you one. You know what I mean? You got to send the whole gun back because your battery doesn't work. Like,
Yeah,
people are
it's
fun.
it's
People are
something.
funny.
It's Marlin. I just looked up the name. I should have known it. Marlin is the owner
Oh,
of
okay.
hobby headquarters. Yeah,
Yeah, my
so I
buddy's
went in
known him
there.
forever too.
I went in there when I lived in Atascadero for like a year, so I came in like 20 years later, like, hey, do you remember me?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. My buddy Ryan that I was up there with, he said he's been going there since he was 13. It's always been that same dude. The dude's super cool.
Yeah, that's cool. So it's an
Oh,
airsoft battery that he had on
yeah,
stock, in
yeah,
stock.
yep. Yeah, and so it fit perfectly, same size, everything. It actually has like a couple, a little bit more storage on it. It's still the same ampage and everything, but it's just got a little bit more juice. So after shooting all day, my battery actually didn't drop at all.
How much did that cost you?
$30.
Okay, that's cheap.
Yeah, yeah. And I know if I would have called AOA or Daystate or whatever, they would have sent me a new battery because it's under warranty. And even if it's not, they're super cool and they work with you. And so I know I could have got a battery, but I couldn't have got a battery that day. And so
So
luckily that shop was there.
is Ryan convinced to get a different gun now?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. They love the Sidewinder, and then they absolutely love the Alpha Wolf. But the Sidewinder is what I think they're going to end up going with.
Yeah, it's
So
a nice gun.
yes, it is.
I
It is.
The newest Rattler, by the way, since we're on that subject, I guess is going to have a carbon fiber shroud now. That's what I was told.
Okay.
I haven't seen it yet, but that's what's going to be coming out on the newest Rattler, and I guess it's going to have 12 foot-pounds more than the previous iteration. I think they improved the design a little bit, but
Nice.
I don't know. I'm feeling the Sidewinder. I've been very tempted on buying one for myself, but I just bought a Ghost, so I'm gonna ghost myself up. I'm a VRK bro now.
Yeah, yeah, there you go. I want one of those ghosts too. When they unveiled that thing, I fell in love with it. I was like, that is awesome. That
Yeah,
is a
like
bad
last
gun
week there
right
was a
there.
bunch of guys checking it out that there are have 10 different guns in their cabinet, and they're all like, wow, this shoulder is really nice, like I like this thing. And then I sold one that day. Usually if I
Hmm.
can get someone to hold on to it, it gets on their docket of that they're going to want to buy it at some point. But
Yeah,
the thing that attracted me about the Ghost for Florida is that I can get it in 22 for stuff like competitions or shooting in my backyard. The power adjustability is super simple, not complex tuning or anything like
yep,
that. But with a 30 cal barrel kit, just like the Alpha, that I can hunt hogs here. So that's why I kind of went in the direction of a Ghost.
yeah, definitely. And the Ghost basically is the Alpha Wolf without the computer, And
Yeah,
so
same
the
like
people that are,
monocoque frame.
yeah, the same barrel systems. I mean, doesn't have the chronograph like the Alpha Wolf has, but same barrels, same setup, And then it's got obviously that power adjuster setup that's completely different than the valve system in the Alpha Wolf, but they're pretty much on the same level with accuracy and power. And so if somebody's intimidated by the computer and they just want something as good, I mean the Ghost is perfect.
Yeah, I think when it first came out too, you know how big of an impression it made because people are freaking out about its release. Like that gun, I think got outsized marketing from a lot of the people having discussions about like whether it was a copy of a Wildcat or Maverick or whatever it was, but it's completely different internals. So it's like,
Yeah,
if you're saying it's like a bullpup that's black, like yeah, it looks like that, but otherwise has its sister product is the Alpha and the Delta, right? So the whole internals are nothing like those guns. So I think
no,
it actually benefited when it comes to marketing on that.
yeah. And that's funny when people say it looks like something, you know what I mean? Because in the firearm world, what shotguns don't look like other shotguns? What revolvers
Yeah,
don't
and what
look like other
ARs?
revolvers? Yeah, yeah, ARs,
Oh, ARs.
yeah, they all look
When
the
I've gone to
same.
SHOT Show, the thing that I hate about SHOT Show the most is it's really like AR show. Like everywhere you look is like AR, 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 AR. It gets really tiring. Like the one
Uh-huh.
area that was really cool 2 years ago was the FN booth because they have, so many cool guns. You go over to the like machine guns that they have. Obviously, they have federal contracts, so you go over there and there's like so many different kinds of machine guns and submachine guns. So the FN booth is really cool, but all
Hmm.
the random like small boutique AR stores. And I'm sure there's like probably three places in America that are like forging mills that actually make most AR components. So when you're
Uh,
walking around, you're just basically seeing custom shops, but most of the parts are probably made in two forges where they make all the parts for AR-15.
yeah, yep. And then it's all the same from company to
Yeah,
company. It's like it's all the same stuff.
it's, it's basically like PSA, like Palmetto State Armory, like parts that are rebranded.
Yep, yep. And so when you see that, it's kind of funny, you know what I mean? Like people griping about something looking like something else. Because the Ghost has its own that power wheel system. I mean, that's unique to the Ghost. Like that's
Yeah, well, the first one though, the claim was that there was some kind of copy being made, and I think that I'm not in the company, so I obviously don't know, but I don't think it was. They would have done their due diligence on a patent search before doing it anyway. But I know that they had that the power wheel that's on it right now is actually was a one that they had developed at the same time. So they were just doing different iterations of it. So when that claim came through, or they were saying there was a copy, they just threw on the different one that they designed, and they were ready to go. And I think that people love that power reel. It makes it really simple, kind of like the Sidewinder, just very simple to do. And when I'm shooting the Ghost, it's really nice just to have it click down, and it's the same kind of reel that's in the Atomic, I think, the Atomic XR.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
same location on the back, so it's very, very simple. And there's lots of guns that have power reels on their platform. So I don't know what the whole deal was, but I stay out of that stuff. I mean, just it is what it is. But it's definitely a cool gun because the simplicity. I'd rather have it simple than complex and make me have to sit there and spend time on it.
Yeah, definitely. And for me, the Alpha Wolf, I don't think it's complex at all. But the thing is, there's been a couple times where I forgot to charge my battery and I got all the way out to where I'm shooting and like I'm dead. And I'm like, oh man,
You need
So there's
an extra battery.
Well, I started putting a battery bank in my tank bag. So I've got that battery bank, and so if it is low, I can just charge it on the bench.
While you're shooting.
Yeah. So figured that out, and so as long as you realize what the issues are, and then you plan for them, then they aren't issues at all.
Yeah, I think the thing with the Alpha Wolf 2 that people don't understand is why it goes through the battery faster than, let's say, a Red Wolf or like a Safari, the Safari 30 cal that Daysay came out with. Is that it has a computer that's like an LCD like screen, right? So you have the screen running, and then you actually have computations going on. So it's doing a lot of work on the background. So it's naturally going to use your power up, and then you have to recharge it. But usually, I think most people get through easily a day or 2 days with it.
Oh, several days. Yeah. I can shoot for several days with it. I mean, even when I was at EBR, I didn't charge it the whole weekend. No, I take that back. I charged it in my hotel room that night, and yeah, between days I did charge it, but it wasn't completely depleted. But I just wanted to make sure I didn't die in the middle of a comp, But yeah, the battery actually lasts a pretty good amount. So and it's also how you have it set.
EBR 2023, you're going. What are your plans when it comes to? Are you going to try to stay really close to the range? Or are you going to try to find a place that has some property on it, or what's your strategy? Let's hear it.
Well, last time I just got a room, and I got one in Chandler, like right in between AOA and the range, and kind of like in the middle of the two. And I liked it. I like that location and stuff, but I may look into Airbnbs this time, just because there's more space, more comfortable. So, but I'm definitely going 100%. Just haven't really made plans on where I'm going to stay yet.
Yeah, we should do the same VRBO. Last time I was with the RTI team, basically. So there's like Mission, there's Francisco, Jean was there from Zan Slugs, and Nathan Davidson, and Black Arts Design, David at Black Arts. It was really good house, and all those guys are really cool, but I was absent most of it because I was filming a lot. All those guys are really nice guys. But yeah, it's fun to find a group that they can go in on one house because it makes it pretty cheap. My big gripe with VRBO is the cleaning fee, right? So you're like, oh, this is pretty affordable, and the cleaning fee is like $250. But if you have a bunch of people, then it's not that bad.
Yeah. And for me, my wife likes to go with me out there, and so it's kind of harder to go get a room, a house with a bunch of people. You know what I mean? When the wife wants to come,
a bunch of dudes walking around their underwear, like, hey.
yeah, a bunch of us just being us. You know what I mean? Like so. And my wife, she likes to hang out and do her own thing. Like during my competition, she'll come up and like, hang out for a little bit while I compete, and then mainly just go to the dinner with me, the banquet or whatever. But she likes to use it as a vacation too.
I want to camp there, but the problem with the camping is the charging everything, because I have microphones and a camera to charge, so that I might have, like, I went through 4 batteries a day there on my video camera,
Oh yeah.
and
Yeah.
plus my microphones. So if I don't have a charging station that's reliable, I have to charge it every night when I get home. So if I
Yeah.
don't have that, then the next day I'm gonna be screwed.
Oh yeah. Be carrying a big old generator around with you.
But if I get the camera that I'm looking at, the video camera, I think that I could get that boiled down a little easier, because I could get some bigger battery packs, it's not just a camera like to take photos, but it's a proper video camera. Then I think it might be easier.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Better equipment always makes it easier.
Yeah, what I really want is I want to be able to film, like, at 100 yards. I want to film a card without looking through a scope. So I'd like
Yeah.
to have some kind of telescopic lens where I could actually see the card close up. Now,
Yeah.
is that feasible? I don't think so, but I even thought about, okay, I could get like a scope without a reticle or something like that, and just put the Tacticam on there. Then I could do that. There's got to be a solution, but I'm trying to think outside the box. But that'd be
Spotting
kind of a
scope.
cool thing to do. Yeah, spotting
Yes.
scope. But
Hmm.
the thing with most spotting scopes is they have like funky eyepieces. So I don't know. I don't think I can get
Yeah.
like something like a Tacticam on there unless it's like has a built-in recorder, which would be weird too.
Right. Right. Yeah, I've got my side shot, and I was gonna set that up too to record because it doesn't fit on the scope I'm using, and so I wanted to set it up to film my target. But like you said, the reticle's on there, and it's gonna look weird, like filming through it when that's not the reticle I'm shooting on. And so I can't use my spotting scope either because, like you said, it's like that wonky shape, and it just doesn't fit on there.
Well, let's go back to outdoor stuff talk, and then we're end the conversation. When you go out to the middle of nowhere with the air gun, have you ever come across something weird where you kind of get chased out? Like with firearms, it's easy because people hear you. With an air gun, have you ever gone somewhere like public land where someone's been like, "Hey, you're not supposed to be shooting here"?
No, because I've mainly always shot at my house because I have 2 acres. And so I've always shot at my house until I started getting ready for EBR. Then I went to the range. And where I live, me and my buddies, we can shoot on our properties and stuff. So we haven't had that issue. One of my friends was shooting at the water tower right by our house. He just had a brake barrel. And then the helicopter started circling. And so he just threw the brake barrel in the back of his truck, loaded up his targets, and then just drove home. Well, he wasn't even home 5 minutes, and like 20 cops raided his house, like guns drawn and everything on him. And luckily he had the brake barrel still in the back of the truck, so they didn't go into his garage and see what else was in the garage. But he was able to show him the brake barrel, and like they backed off, and like they just told him don't be doing that up there anymore because somebody called and said he has assault rifle or something. But from the helicopter
Holy cow!
you can tell it's a brake barrel. But still his whole house got swarmed.
Well, I mean, from a helicopter though, it might look like a Mini 14 or something like a ranch rifle. So maybe unless they
Yeah,
saw them breaking it. But I mean, people don't know. Like if you're breaking a barrel, it could look like a shotgun, like a caravan
but
shotgun.
I mean, police should know their weapons better than I do, and I know my weapons well enough to know that that's a brake barrel. And he even took a couple shots because he said he saw the cop circling, so he didn't want to look all like sketchy and just throw everything in the truck and bail all quick. So he took a couple more shots, and then calmly loaded stuff up in his car and drove home. And yeah, they raided him.
That's
And then
crazy.
yeah, and then I've been chased off by tree huggers when I was in New Mexico, like, but that was with firearms. But they'd hear me calling in like animals, and I'd call in tree huggers, dude. They'd come up and start yelling at me and trying to get me to stop hunting.
That's
But it's actually a crime in New Mexico to harass a hunter. So
right. There's actually a lot
yeah,
of states that have that in place.
yeah,
And I've been lucky enough that I'm pretty neurotic about that kind of stuff. So I do a lot of research on where I can can go. I don't just like pick a field and go, oh yeah, I'm going to shoot here, because like that's a good way to get arrested. But I'm pretty dang careful, and I've luckily never ran into any issues. But I've always wondered, because when you get to the higher power air guns, including like Sidewinder or Ghost or an Alpha Wolf that we've been talking about today, when you're putting on the top end of the power, you are getting a bark, especially if you're not moderating it. And if I'm hunting too, I never take a moderator. I don't know, something about that. Just, I think like if someone federal guy showed up and didn't know what it was, like, I don't know. It's kind of like a question mark on whether they'd know and do something about that. So I always have it just basic, like nothing on it. And it does have a bark on it. But that being said, if you're out in the middle of nowhere, I always expect like someday there's just going to be someone that shows up like, hey, you should get out of here because you're hunting animals or whatever.
Yeah. And there's some spots around here that are just like infiltrated with those ground squirrels, and I want to go take them out, and then there's like a lake by me, and then it's covered in those ground squirrels, and they're just destroying like the levee and the banks and all that. And so they really do need to be eradicated there, but they don't allow you to shoot, but there's some areas where I'm like, oh, I could probably do that, but it's like, no, I'm not going to lose $5,000 worth of equipment and then go to jail or something. You know what I mean? Like, it's not worth it.
There's a couple of really good apps though now, like OnX hunting map app that you can get on your phone, and it's really nice because it'll show you your state grounds, and you can like have a live GPS coordinate of your location where the border might be of that state ground or the federal ground, and you can stay within your parameter and not get arrested.
Yeah, and I've tried talking to Fish and Game and stuff, and people like don't have answers for me. Like,
no, they don't it's bureaucracy. Their whole thing is not to give you answers, because if they give you an answer, that's liability for them. So they're never going to give you an answer, even if they're the ultimate authority.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and it's annoying because I get nowhere. But there's a lot of places around here, if they would just let me, then I could go hunt hogs down in the riverbed. I could hunt all those ground squirrels out at the lake, but too many tree huggers.
Yep, those damn tree huggers.
Yeah. Damn hippies.
Luckily, Florida has like, instead of tree huggers, it's trailer people, so they're kind of keen on guns. So for the most part, most of Florida, like there's a couple of sheriffs here. I watch their like YouTube channels. They're like have big followings, and they're just like there's some upheaval, societal upheaval. They're like, if you come down here, we're gonna shoot you.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome.
Yep, definitely.
All right, man. Well, I think we've tired people of our exhaustive product placement and joy for Airguns, so I think we should let people go.
Right on.
It's been fun. I haven't done a podcast in like a month and a half, I think. So it's been nice having you on. I mean, you can always
likewise. Always a pleasure to be on.
Next time we're going to have Roger on again, and we can talk about Bigfoot and aliens.
Yep, the paranormal.
Yeah, the paranormal. He always wants to go on about that. So
yeah.
I told him just make a paranormal podcast where he can talk about aliens 24/7.
Yeah, like coast to coast. There you go.
Yeah, except it'd be I don't know. Yeah, it'd be like the monarch to monarch or something. To England. He's got a new king there, so.
That's right. I wonder if he's at the coronation bowing down to his new king.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Jeremiah, I'll see you next time.
All right, cool, Tristan. Pleasure as always. Later.
Right.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Atlas Airguns Podcast. Make sure to subscribe, give a 5-star rating, and visit www.atlasairguns.com to buy from our shop.